There's no way UCLA's positive second half can have any carryover effect, right? Right?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Everybody, to this edition of Locked On UCLA Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, joined once again by Jason Kelly of the Let's Run podcast. Thanks for making this show your first listen each every day. It's free wherever it's your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Welcome back, everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, in the football season, it's just around the corner. It's in season. Basically, visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. And apparently, if I have anything to predict with a win in UCLA, maybe stay far away from it if I'm talking about it, Jason. Thanks for joining once again. It's been all negative. It's terribly negative for UCLA. How does it feel from the UNLV side of camp, and what do you think of UCLA after watching that debacle Saturday night?
Yeah, so I was in Allegiant Stadium. I got to see everybody pretty close up. It was a really fun game in the first half for us, obviously. I think that our defensive staff, our offensive staff really had a good game plan. Obviously, we were up 23-3, and there was it was one of the most frustrating viewing experiences of a game that I've ever seen, because both teams were just in a competition to see who could get the most flags thrown on them. And ultimately, it was very messy. And we did end up winning at the end of the game. We're happy. We're 3-0. We beat a Big Ten team. We beat UCLA, and we're going into a bye week. So from the UNLV side, we're feeling great. Still a lot of things to clean up, but I got to say that I've been watching a lot of UCLA content, your shows, some other people talking about it on this channel too. The other guy, I'm not sure. He does a good job. I liked him as well. And I just feel like, Nico showed some stuff in that second half. And I would say even more so than Nico, I think the UCLA coaching staff showed a little bit of pride in that second half. Now, it doesn't make, the anger not justified. It's still, this is a game that UCLA was favored in. It's a Big Ten team. It's a team that has more money behind it than UNLV does. It's a team that has technically better recruits than UNLV does, literally. And, I saw the size of the offensive linemen. I sit on the fifth row. I could see these guys. They were bigger than our guys. And so ultimately, I left the game as a UNLV fan very happy. We're very happy to be 3-0. But from a UCLA perspective, I don't think Foster's completely buried. This is a good UNLV team. I don't know if they're a great UNLV team, but they're a good UNLV team. And Dan Mullen, he was the head coach at Florida. He was the head coach at Mississippi State. It's a serious program. And only if they lose to New Mexico next week, we can talk about, where we see the UCLA season going. I think at that point it would be time to literally, leave DeShawn Foster, as we were saying, in the Rose Bowl, let him clean up the mess as he gets fired from UCLA.
If they lose to New Mexico. Yes.
If they lose to New Mexico, yeah. That's because New Mexico's, Jason X actually, here's the thing too. New Mexico next week at UCLA, that's a real football program, New Mexico. Jason Eck, that program's not great or anything, they're not in the greatest place, but Jason Eck, the head coach in New Mexico, is a serious guy. You saw what they did at Michigan. They are not going to just hand UCLA the game. You're not playing an FCS school. You're playing a program that takes football seriously, even if they don't quite have the talent, even that maybe a UNLV does. So I would just kind of caution, there's still some winnable games on the UCLA schedule. And from a UNLV side, we're very happy and we're very much rooting for you the rest of the season. UNLV is now Nico's the greatest, man. I love Nico. He's the greatest quarterback ever. He's going to lead UCLA to 10-2. That's where we are now as UNLV fans. We are your biggest fans because we want you to succeed and we want you to go forward. And, and I feel bad that there's some very good people that are UCLA fans that are very upset, and they have every right to be. But, there's a lot of season left. And, unless they lose to New Mexico, I don't think it's time to bury the football program.
Yeah, it is a lot of negativity, including for myself. It's really frustrating. But then you pile on, right? UNLV's DB, his name slips my mind, but who is it? Amaris Brown comes out, talks smack, and backs it up with the game-sealing pick. That's just how it feels from a UCLA perspective. That of all the people to get the interception that ends the game, it's him, and that's just kind of how it feels. There's a lack of respect to UCLA, and that somebody can back it up and individually, personally do so against the dude he's talking trash to end the game when the game was still very much in the balance. I think that's where UCLA and fans and everybody, including myself, are embarrassed. In addition to just a step backwards from the Utah game, which I didn't think was possible. They made a lot of momentum. We'll talk about that in the second half. But the penalties, we were messaging the entire game. You got the full barrage of my emotional state from start to finish, Jason, more so than maybe everybody watching the reaction. That had to be one of the ugliest football games of this season from an execution standpoint. And you wouldn't expect that from a UNLV team that had played 2 games before UCLA played a football game. UCLA has played one, and they weren't that terribly undisciplined in terms of flags in game one. And then all of a sudden, in this game, I can argue that there was some shaky flags, some weak flags thrown by the officiating, but still, like, it seemed like they're always holding, they're always false starting. It was like watching a terrible high school football game where the players don't know how to play football at times with some of these silly fouls.
Totally. And definitely, that's the thing is it wasn't just the UCLA side. It was us too. We were just as bad. And our opening drive, we had 3, or I think our first 8 plays, 6 of them had penalties on them. Like it was outrageous. And all of them, I mean, yes, some of them were a bit ticky-tack, but I did feel like both teams were just playing sloppy. Which for a third game from UNLV was a little, disconcerting. And, the takeaway from all the other fan bases that don't like us very much is oh, UCLA sucks. And that really wasn't my takeaway, especially from that second half. And Nico himself is a talented player. I thought the game was going to be close. And so the game being close isn't a surprise to me. The way that second half did play out wasn't really a surprise to me either, because I see this team, this UNLV team. I think sometimes when you get NFL people in college, they tend to treat how games play out and end in the NFL but they don't. That doesn't work in college. A lot of times if you're up 3 scores in college, and especially if you have a talent disparity like UCLA does over UNLV at a lot of different positions, our defense was saying, hey, we'll give you the 8 to 12 yard pass, and we're just going to keep you from getting explosive touchdowns. I think that staff, that offensive staff, had a game plan. They said, how can we come back from 23-3? And they did almost about as good as you could hope a team to do while still committing a ton of penalties, by the way. And there's still something there. And Nico's still a good player, man. You saw him make some really good throws. And so ultimately, there's still something salvageable for UCLA. And from UNLV side, we're frustrated with how we finished the game too. But I don't think the doom and gloom is quite as necessary as some people do. And the Big Ten, look, at the top, when you're playing Penn State, you're probably going to get blown out. Everybody's going to get blown out when they play Penn State. But there's still a lot of winnable games in the Big Ten and room to grow. So I don't think it's time to burn it down.
And then I think one final question for this first segment. Do you think there was energy on that UCLA sideline? Did it look like they had juice? From my perspective, still being from home, I was like, it seemed like part of the team was juice. Some of it wasn't. Do you feel like that the whole team was into it from your perspective?
I thought that I thought Nico actually rallied his team a little bit, and look, that first half was so bad, and the doom and gloom stuff from that first half, if that had kept up and they had lost 56 to 3 or 10 or whatever, they kind of did against,
expecting that way for a while.
Yeah, and it looked like it was going to be that way until UNLV decided to play prevent defense. And look, we would have been burned a little bit. We were going, UCLA has enough talent that we were going to get scored on in that second half. That was just going to happen. But I thought that Nico had command of the field. He was making the right reads. He was doing exactly what his offensive staff was telling him to do. And even on that last play, when you're asking a guy to throw as much as UCLA was asking him to throw, that's going to happen. You're not going to play perfectly every single time. And so I thought that he showed something that if they can carry it into a dominant, I think they have to dominate New Mexico. If they can carry it into a dominant win, there may be some positive momentum here. But again, as a UNLV fan, that's what I want to have happen, because it makes us look better, especially because we played sloppy too. So Nico was commanding the field. I was in there. I was 20 feet, 30, 40 yards from him. He was commanding the field. He was doing a good job. He was stepping up. And that's something that you have to see. And they still lost. And so there's no moral victory in it, but it is something that he's shown that he can do.
Next, we're going to talk about the best thing we saw and the worst thing we saw. We've talked penalties, so we can't say penalties because that's easily the worst thing we saw. But we'll talk kind of the best thing and worst thing we saw on both sides for UCLA and UNLV in segment 2. More next on Locked On UCLA. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion, the great ginger, and lime-flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies and making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out in the course and just need a little pick-me-up or a little extra push to power through your day, 5-hour energy transfusion delivers that clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. And for me, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I stayed up watching the game. Or maybe for you, you're out on that Sunday trying to pick your energy up after a UCLA game. And you're like, what's the wildest shot you've ever made? Well, golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor 5-hour energy transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without ever leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee that up, trip, and visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. Quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and win $300 in bonus bets if you're a new customer. Go check it out. FanDuel.com. Cruising in segment 2 of Locked On UCLA. Once again, we are still joined by Jason Kelly. Jason of the Let's Run pod. We're talking the best thing we saw and the worst thing we saw on both sides. For me, I was impressed by UNLV was a lot better than I thought. For a team that trailed in the fourth quarter to Idaho State, for a team who I didn't think was too impressive against Sam Houston State, they came out and took it to UCLA. A very shaky first couple of plays, bailed out by a UCLA PI on third down in their opening drive. And the next thing you know, they didn't miss a beat. It seemed like the broadcasters were making it seem like the UNLV kicking game was the worst thing since I don't know what. And then the dude nails like a 50-yarder. Career long, yeah! And they used that momentum to a big first half and a 20-point first half lead, 23-point first half lead before a 20-point halftime lead. And that was huge. Just the ability from Calandria to sprint around the UCLA defense for the second consecutive week. We've seen a quarterback do that. That was impressive for me, for UNLV. For the UCLA side of things, the ability to fight back, the ability to find a run game. They ran the ball well. They haven't done that in like 2 years consistently. So if that's something to build upon, that could be a huge thing for UCLA to do. What was some of your bests before we get to your worsts?
So I guess I'll start with the UNLV side, just, because that's from UNLV, like we have a good quarterback, like our offense, our defense, the way that we are schemed out our second half was certainly a little disappointing. I feel like we the term in European soccer is parking the bus. When you go up 2-0, all of a sudden you say, all right, we're just going to try and stop the other team from scoring. We're going to keep 11 back. We're going to play drop 8, And I felt like there was quite a bit of that for this UNLV defense in that second half. But in order to get to that point where you are trying to play prevent defense, you have to have a good first half. And the UNLV defensive line had a pretty good first half. And I thought that the coaching staff, our defensive coordinator is Paul Gunther, who has been, again, like I think I said before last time I was on, he's been fired by 11 NFL teams. Because he's always,
he's like a Major League Baseball reliever. Just like that's the best way to put him as a coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Band-Aid. He comes in and he has his DBs play 10 yards off their guys at all times and lets teams kind of pick them to death, pick them apart slowly. And you saw that a lot in the second half. But from UNLV side, we've got a good offense. Our defense really didn't do our offense any favors in the second half. And we had that one drive where we got 8 yards on first down and then 2 deep shots. And so we only ran 4 plays in the third quarter. I think we got a good quarterback. This UNLV team, again, I still, even after this win, I don't think we're a college football playoff kind of team. We're not going to, we can compete in the Mountain West certainly. But there's a lot of potential there. Some good receivers. Our running game is fine. Negatives wise, again, like I already said, I didn't like our scheme, and that was on Paul Gunther. I actually thought our players executed the scheme in the second half pretty well. But this goes to the positive that I saw from UCLA. So Sunseri, my mistake there. Sunseri, the offensive coordinator for UCLA, DeShawn Foster, that staff, they were down 23-3 at halftime. And I think when they got in that room, they looked at each other and said, okay, are we going to give up? What's our path here to getting back in this game? Because we have advantages over UNLV. We have things that if we do the right type of play time and time again, we can build up and get back in this game. And they did that. They absolutely said, hey, we have size advantages. We can run the ball a little bit. Our receivers are fast on the outside. And we can get kind of 8 to 10 yard chunk plays. And while it's not going to give us the explosive downfield play that's going to get us back in the game immediately, they had a strategy and they pulled it off. And they very nearly pulled it off. I mean, I thought after we went up 30-13, it was like, okay, finally, gosh, man, end this stinking game. But
and that's not what happened.
That's not what happened at all. I mean, we got bailed out on that Anthony Colandrea, what looked like a pick six. I mean, goodness, man, he was down. Luckily, I did feel like when the big pivotal plays happened, whether it be him being down or the pick play, I really did think that was a pick that UCLA set in the end zone. There were some big calls made, but I didn't feel like they were like crazy, but there were just so many. It was just, ultimately, when I talk about what UCLA did that I thought that was a positive, they executed a game plan. Now, they should be criticized for having been put in that position anyway. And if they're bad, they're going to keep losing. But they showed an ability to say, hey, we're in the middle of a game. We have to make an adjustment. Instead of going for the deep shots, instead of, keeping Nico in the pocket for way too long like they did in the first half, they said, we're going to run little out routes. We're going to run the ball. We're going to use our size. We're going to use our advantages, and we're going to execute as a staff. And that says something, there's plenty of things you can criticize about Foster and the staff. But his ability, at least in that second half, and if they suck, they're going to keep losing. So it's not like we're like sitting on moral victories here. The ability to execute a plan and for that plan to work out, you just dug yourself. UCLA was just in too big of a hole after that first half. I mean, it was going to be very difficult to come back from 23-3, especially with that type of play calling. But I will say that impressed me. And Nico, I thought, was a gamer, in that second half. And it's not a moral victory. It's not something to celebrate. It's not something, I get that there's Tennessee fans dancing on his grave 24 hours a day. And hey, rightly so, you're allowed to do that. If you want to do that, you are justified in doing that. But if you want to save the season, there's something there. And I still think this team can make a bowl game. I still think this team can maybe pick off a team that later on in the season that people aren't expecting them to. So I don't know if you agree with my impressions of that second half, even though people are still rightly justified to be frustrated.
I mean, it'll be really, really rough because when it comes to my worsts, the problem is UCLA might have made some adjustments defensively, but they still look so bad against the team. I thought they could have stopped a lot more than they did. They came out and should have had a 3-and-out. And then they could have held UNLV to a field goal, and then they tackled it in the end zone. Debatable PI call on an uncatchable ball, but I'm not going to go down that route because they gave up 30 points. So we can't even get down there. Just the fact that they were just there defensively, they no-showed. All right, that they just no-showed. And when they had a chance to, keep UNLV to less than 30 points, they actually had some pressure, and they just didn't do it consistently enough to let UCLA win this game. Because if UNLV doesn't even kick a field goal, or if they don't even score that last touchdown, very, very different ball game. If Nico and company just have to go get a game-tying field goal. But that kind of killed things for me. The defensive adjustments that just showcased how bad it was in the beginning, what it looked like they were very close. And this is more, for me, the players on the field not making plays for the second consecutive week. That's the worst for me. And then on the UNLV side, what was the play calling in the second half? Like, it looked like they could have torched UCLA or just run the ball. And then when they could have had a first down, they just threw the ball 3 times, incomplete, down the field, putting Colandrea at a terrible spot, allowing UCLA to have a lot of time to go down the field and potentially tie the game. It didn't end up hurting them, but I was very confused. Outside that second half touchdown drive, some pretty rough play calling for UNLV.
I think, we have a Corey Dennis, he's a first-year offensive coordinator. That clearly I think is lacking a little bit of experience. In fact, I wish Dan Mullen was calling our plays, to be honest with you, because I think Dan Mullen's a lot better at it than he is. But I think Dan Mullen, I don't think he wants to take any more responsibility than he has to. I mean, certainly some Florida fans would agree that he doesn't want to work more than he has to. And I think that Dennis, and there's just a little bit of, again, 55 new players, even though, we had 2 weeks before, but a lot of these guys on our team, Justin Flo, our linebacker that got ejected for targeting in the dumbest possible way. The play was already over, and he just barrels his head into a guy. a lot of these guys, I mean, they're upperclassmen, but they haven't played a ton. They were at Oregon for 3 years and didn't play, or they were at Alabama and Georgia for 2 years and didn't play. And so I just think there's still a lot of inexperience. And luckily, UNLV has 2 bye weeks during the month of September, and only 1 game. And we don't play another home game until October 10th. So, this was our, it's a ridiculous schedule because of the way that we had to move the week 0 game. So a lot of room to grow. But I think these are 2 teams with warts. And luckily, we play Miami, Ohio, and you guys have to go play Penn State. So, I mean, I'm grateful that we have some winnable games in front of us. But again, I still think UCLA has winnable games in front of them as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about, you've teased it. Can they make a bowl game? Every UCLA fan says no. The man with the true eyes on the team on the field that Saturday night, we'll debate. Can they make a bowl game? Can they make a run at it like 2024? Or is DeShawn Foster just, dead to rights already? We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. College football is back, baby, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, and prices jumping at checkout. That's not cool. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans, you and me. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. And what you see is what you pay. There's been times I've been going out for a group outing, trying to go get some tickets to some big-time games, and I'm like, where am I going to? And I go to Game Time, and it always comes through, whether it's been football, basketball, but every sport, hockey, you name it, Game Time's been there, and it's helped me out. And in a couple of taps, I see amazing deals. College football games as low as $25 or even lower in some cases. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Segment 3 of Locked On UCLA. Is this positive pumping? Are we sunshine or are we bringing down the rains as the dark days of UCLA football hit us? We'll find out. But Jason Kelly of the Let's Run pod, you've kind of teased this already. You think UCLA can make a run of a bowl game in 2024? UCLA went 1-1. You could argue they played just as bad against Hawaii last year, but they won that game, and then they figured it out and went on a run. With a more talented quarterback, different coaches, maybe the hope is UCLA could salvage something. I'm not sure if that's enough to salvage the DeShawn Foster tenure, or at least the perception at this moment. But you still think there is some potential for positivity for UCLA football this year?
Well, I guess before I say whether, what their future is, I want to ask you, do you think if they go 6-6 and make a bowl, what's the state of UCLA football if they go 6-6, make a bowl game? How would you feel about it?
It's so interesting because the way you look at their updated win totals, you look at how they perform, just the fan apathy, it's been horrific. So 6-6, no, but the way how they started, and if they all of a sudden go 6-6 and say pull off a very shocking upset, and I'm saying of the Penn State, Ohio State variety, beat some of these big name blue blood college football teams that come to UCLA and have some fun atmospheres and play fun football games, then 6-6 would be like, wow, they really needed some time to figure it out. And then DeShawn Foster came in. But nobody is probably going to be in the Rose Bowl when they play New Mexico on Friday night, September 12th. It will be empty. It'll be a ghost town. I'm pretty sure it might break the record for the lowest attended UCLA game ever, or might just be the least attended with actual fans in the Rose Bowl ever. That's my thought and potential for what UCLA's done. It's embarrassing. So if they go 6-6, it'd be a remarkable turnaround. But they would have to beat a Penn State or Ohio State to win back the trust of some of the fans and play a lot closer games. Not getting down 20 points back-to-back weeks against teams that Utah, yes, UNLV, you shouldn't be trailing by 20 points anytime in that game. That's where the fans mostly have already given up on this, and they want everybody fired. There's a new chancellor in town at UCLA, Julio Frank. They want him to fire the AD, clean house with the football program, and actually hire a real coach with coordinating experience, maybe a Tony White, anybody, and bring back respectability. But if DeShawn Foster turns it around, they've got a good recruiting class coming in, addressing all the problems they have on the O-line and the D-line, because you have to develop talent, and DeShawn is addressing that. He just needs time. I'm just not sure he's going to get it.
Yeah, and I would just say, like, your and I's evaluation of what this UNLV UCLA game was going to look like is probably how it should have gone. I mean, both teams should have been able to score on each other, because you saw our defense certainly was vulnerable. UCLA's defense was still vulnerable, even though we have a good offense. Like, that game should have been a 38-34 type of game, like with either team having a chance to win. That's my opinion about it. And I picked UCLA to win the game. So I mean, I'm not trying to say that I thought UNLV was far more talented or anything. No, UCLA has more talent than UNLV does. But, I look at this team and I say, if they go 6-6, like 6-6 is fine, but it's not like, the type of season that fans think back on 20 years from now. Oh my gosh, can you remember that 6-6 UCLA football team? It's not a program building season.
They need that Vandy moment, right? They need to drag the goalpost out to the river like they did at Tennessee a few years ago. I say Tennessee right now, but when they beat Alabama, or in Vandy beat Alabama. Diego Pavia, because he beat Alabama, changed the rules of college football for an entire year across every sport for the JUCO rule because he beat Alabama. That's the type of game UCLA needs to win. Like if you make a huge upset, you'll remember that game. Like UCLA in 2006, when they beat SC, that built my UCLA fandom for so long, just on a huge upset. They only went like 7-6 that year, even losing the bowl game after, embarrassed by Florida State in San Francisco that year. But that's a memory of a lifetime. That's the type of win DeShawn needs to have to keep his job and earn back a little trust that is already broken between the fans and has been whittling away since Chip Kelly left.
Yeah, I mean, and I look at UCLA's schedule last year. They beat Hawaii in a crazy, low scoring, kind of really sloppy game, and then they had 5 really tough games in a row. The Minnesota game is probably one you look at, and they did win some games as the season went on, but none of those wins were, and they go 5-7 that year. None of those wins were against marquee type teams, and the difference, and I totally agree with you. This is exactly what I was getting at. I look at the 2025 schedule for UCLA, and I see next week they have New Mexico. They should win that game. Jason Eck's a good coach. They're still going to have to earn the game. And if you think New Mexico is going to walk in like an FCS team and lose 56-0, and Nico's not even going to have to play well, he's going to have to play well to beat New Mexico and beat New Mexico convincingly. Then they play one of the worst Power 4 teams in the country at Northwestern. That's good. I think they can win that game. And then they play Penn State. What they're going to have to do at Penn State, or I guess it's at home. My mistake.
Yeah.
They're just going to be respectable.
I might say. It might feel like it's at Penn State if nobody shows up.
And Penn State fans are going to travel. I mean, it's LA is a fun place to come to. The Rose Bowl is really the home of college football. I hear Joel Klatt talk about this all the time, that the final game of the season should be at the Rose Bowl every single year. It's our 100%. College football mecca. It's an incredible place. And UCLA, all they need to do in that Penn State game, and really when you look at this next stretch, I think the Michigan State game is winnable, but we'll talk about that in a sec. At Indiana, that's going to be tough. I mean, Indiana's a beatable team, but I think Penn State could absolutely do that. When you look at at USC, at Ohio State, at home versus Penn State, they got to win one of those. They got to upset a team. They got to have a crazy win, and they got to get to 6-6. And I think that's possible. College football is weird, man. Penn State, they're not some immortal team that's gonna blow you out of the water all the time. These teams are beatable. You saw Florida lose to USF yesterday. If you think that college football is just a given and that the book's been written on these guys, it hasn't.
Clemson was down big at home to Troy.
Exactly. So it's not unthinkable. And I think as a UCLA fan, if you want DeShawn Foster to work out, which a lot of people don't, you have to get behind the team. This has to be the moment where you say, guys, we love the Bruins. We're going to get behind this team. This is going to be our team. We're going to win a big game. The players have to have they have to say, hey, no world victories. We know that we can play, and they can do it. Their schedule has wins. Maryland, they could beat Maryland. Nebraska's the perennial underachiever in college football. SC, Washington, Washington almost lost they were in a tight game with Colorado State. There's wins on this schedule, man. You can get to 6-6. And most importantly, like you said, you can get to 6-6 and upset a team. Games are winnable. I think that Penn State game is a huge opportunity. Crush New Mexico, go beat Northwestern, and then please beat Penn State as a Rebel fan. And this team is capable of doing it. And if you think they can't, we were down by a touchdown to Idaho State in the fourth quarter.
And just like New Mexico was too. They were also down. So it's crazy.
And you have a good quarterback. You got good coaches. You got some, I like your offensive coordinator. I like, Foster. I can't say I'm a big fan of him, but he's not a bad, he does love UCLA. He wants UCLA to succeed. And so, you can either choose as a fan, and sometimes it's fun just to bury teams. or you can choose to be positive. And that's your decision to do as a fan. I mean, fans are entitled to fan however they want, as long as they don't cross lines. But there are wins on this schedule. UCLA can absolutely get to 6-6. They can upset a team. And as a UNLV fan, I hope you guys know I am rooting for you. I want UCLA to, because college football is a better place when California's got good football in it. And that's just, and when UCLA, one of the brands of college football, when they're good, it's just better for the sport. And so I'm rooting for you now.
Well, we appreciate it, Jason. You're probably a bigger fan of UCLA football than UCLA football fans are right now. They've already looked at basketball schedule. They're looking at mid-October and counting down the days till an exhibition against San Diego State. But I'd like to see, there's always a team that starts off terrible in college football and at the end of the year figures it out. Unfortunately, in college football, we only care about the teams that go 10-3 or 10-2 or 12-0. And maybe UCLA can do it again and do it in an even greater. It would be a greater twist in this saga if Nico and UCLA figures it out. If that'd be a fun twist. We just don't see it happening. But 6-6, that would be a remarkable turnaround with winnable games on the schedule. But again, that's why you come to Locked On UCLA to find it out. We'll talk about it and digest more. Next, we'll talk UCLA basketball with Chris Johnson, and we'll get his thoughts on the UCLA debacle against New Mexico and tease a little New Mexico game against UNLV, and then tease some New Mexico as well. This has been Locked On UCLA. For Jason Kelly, the Let's Run pod, go check out his stuff as well. I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer signing off, saying, go Bruins.